All right, another big show ahead. As I said, leading economist Chris Richardson will join me live later on, plus James Patterson and Carolyn Marcus all coming up. But now let's bring in former Speaker of the House, Bronwyn Bishop, and Sky News host Caleb Bond. Welcome to you both. Great to see you as always on a Tuesday. Bronwyn, I want to ask you your reaction to David Pocock, the independent senator, coming out today to dispute Albanese's version of events that there wasn't a deal on the environmental laws.
Look, you don't have to be very bright to figure out there was a deal done by Plibersek and that Albanese spoke to the Premier of Western Australia. This will put the seats at risk. Plibersek, out. So all the people who thought they were going to get this deal, which was hideous for Australia, so I'm rather pleased we pulled out of it. Otherwise, it would be up to Prime Minister Dutton to reverse it. So... but equally, he simply took... And the bad blood between Plibersek and Albanese is palpable for all to see. First of all, he thought he could bury her in the environmental portfolio.
Yeah.
And that's turned out to come back and bite him.
She's causing him all sorts of problems.
Which he has. So, and of course, they're rivals. Their seats are next door to each other, and they're both on the left. And she had the temerity to come out as Deputy Prime Minister when, or would be Deputy Prime Minister to shorten when Albanese thought that was going to be his gig. So there's lots of things.
And he'd be worried about her as a future leadership rival as well. But Caleb, you know, what about the fact that he has effectively, as I said, undermined and gaslit a senior woman in his cabinet? I mean, he claimed Scott Morrison had a woman problem. Look how he's treating this senior female in his own team.
It's a very good point. I mean, you know, it hardly reeks of cabinet government, does it? It reminds me a bit of his mate down in Victoria, Daniel Andrews, who ruled the cabinet with an iron fist. It was Dan's way or the highway, and he was very effective in consolidating power by threatening the members of his own cabinet and saying, well, if you want to stay here, you've got to join my faction. I mean, he managed to turn the Treasurer, Tim Pallas, from the right to the socialist left. How does that happen unless you put a gun against someone's head? The problem for Albo now is, I think we were talking about exactly this last week on this panel, he has basically nothing to point to as an achievement while he has been Prime Minister going into the next federal election. And in getting rid of the federal EPA, which was an election promise, as bad as a proposal it might have been, he's broken a promise and he's nixed one of the only things that he could have said, oh yeah, we actually did something that was on our policy platform, because he's realised, oh, well, it'll get us in trouble, like Bronwyn said, in Western Australia. The man has no principles. He's realised now that he's cooked and he's doing everything he can to go backwards 100 miles an hour in the hope that it will save him at the next federal election. I think it's a little bit late for that.
It's so frustrating when politicians campaign on transparency and accountability, actually a bit like the Teals, and then they go on to do the exact opposite.
I don't think any of them can spell transparency, let alone know what it means.
Yeah, indeed. All right.
And I think you're a bit kind about saying Albanese had a steel fist. No,
it's a bit of a limp wrist, I suspect, but, you know, he's giving it a go.
Yeah, I actually think it's the opposite. He lets the ministers do whatever they want. He's not across the detail. He tries to pretend that's a good thing, but really he's just too lazy to do the work to get across the detail.
I think he's already checked out, personally.
Yeah, he's living in the Copacabana clifftop mansion in his dreams already. All right, well, AEMO is warning that gas supplies need to now be carefully managed heading into summer, or else there'll be a risk that the energy grid stability will be damaged or will be volatile across the East Coast. Bronwyn, this is yet another warning from AEMO that, you know, we have a vulnerable energy grid.
They're a bit slow to catch up, aren't they? Because there have been lots of us saying this is a problem and it's all going to happen. And Albo will be regretting the fact that he didn't go on the 7th of December when they were all ready to go, lost their nerve, because it's not going to get any better. Blackouts, more strikes, people who are cancelling more deals, the whole scene, there'll be no rate cut. The whole thing is going to get worse. Blowouts in the budget, which will become more apparent. There's no way they're having another budget. So when we see AEMO come out like this and suddenly admit what we've all known, that blackouts are on the horizon and that the gas hasn't been produced And it's about time they demanded of those people who own those coal-fired power stations to up the maintenance and have them ready to go because they're going to be needed.
It makes people so angry when we think that we've been exporting so much gas,
Correct.
Caleb.
Yeah, well, we don't really have a gas reserve in this country, which is insane. And the gas reserves held by our allies have been depleted in recent years. The US gas reserves were at their lowest point, I think, in 40 years last year. Now, they've started building that back up again. But we have so much gas in this country, particularly in places where we can't extract it, including Victoria, which will be the most reliant on gas if things go wrong over summer, by the way. It was only last year, or might have even been earlier this year, where the Victorian government finally opened up the idea, oh yes, we can drill for gas in Victoria again. But of course no one wants to go and spend the money because they know that it was banned for a decade under Andrews, so why would you bother going to do that? We don't use the resources that we have in this country, whether it's uranium or coal or gas. We send it all overseas for other people to burn. And we used to go, oh, look, we're doing the great thing for the environment here. It doesn't matter where you burn it. We all live in the same world. So why don't we just keep some for ourselves so we can have cheap and reliable energy? Otherwise, you end up like South Australia, where now the Energy Minister, Tom Koutsantonis, is begging for Engie to put 2 diesel generators back in the market. How's that for clean and green?